get shit poppin'. Wrist water, no faucet. Bando to a mansion. You having condo status.
What up, guys, and welcome to part 2 of our studio session series, episode 1. So if you missed part 1, where I went through the process of me making the beat, go check that out. I'll have the link in the description. So anyways, if you've already seen that, this episode, or this part, will be to mixing and mastering this track. So my mixing and mastering, the way I do it is kind of like, I don't know, it's weird because I take a lot of things from a lot of videos I've seen on how to mix and master, and I kind of like put them all together and take the parts that seem to work for me, because I've tried out a lot of methods, and currently I feel like my mixes and mastering right now is stronger than it was before. But let's get straight to it. So if you weren't here for last video, here's what the track sounds like. Okay, so there's what the track sounds like. So we've already got all our sounds in the mixer. So the first thing I do is I EQ everything on normal volume. So I'll right click to solo the channel or the track, add the parametric EQ. Make sure your EQs are always at the top, because what this does is it prioritizes the EQ. So it EQs everything, then it adds the effects. So the way I EQ is, first thing, I start off with the lows, so I scroll down all the way, because as you can see, this is like a really accurate, like precise cut. While if I scroll all the way up, it's like it's a little precise, but it's not good. Like, you'll still get some of the frequencies that you cut out. So just make sure it's steep by scrolling down or pulling down. So once you pull down, put it all the way to the left. And what I'll do is I'll just slowly sweep through, and then I'll cut it back, or I'll just cut in a certain spot, and then I'll kind of decide from there where to go. So on here I'm gonna cut about 200 hertz, and it didn't really affect much, but I just did that so it wouldn't interfere with the kick or the 808 frequencies. But as you kind of can see, there's still some bass frequencies in here. So what I'm going to do to make sure I cut out a lot of that, take this second band, pull it all the way down, and then keep scrolling until this white line right here is in the center of this one. So right there. And now all the bass frequencies should not be there. So as you can see, there's pretty much no frequencies, bass frequencies past 200 hertz. Then I'll do the highs. And that right there is a great example. As you can see, once I started getting over kind of here-ish, you could see the sound change dramatically. So once that happens, you're just gonna pull it back till it sounds normal again. line. And once again, I'm going to do the same thing. So just drag this down. And I'm going to raise this one up a little bit because it kind of does interfere with the sound. Okay. So the next thing I'll do is I'll boost the resonant frequencies a little bit, which are the like bright yellow lines, which means that's the main frequency it's playing. So as you can see, it's kind of around here. So I'll just boost that and then scroll down to make it a bit more precise and specifically to those frequencies. And as you can see, there's also some other activity over here, so I'll boost those frequencies. And that's pretty much how I EQ everything. So I'm probably just gonna do everything normally. I probably won't explain a lot after this. So yeah, let's get through this. Okay, so if you're wondering also where this method came from, this is not at all my method. The EQing thing, I got this from Internet Money, one of their tutorials on mixing. So this is not at all my thing. Like, I did not make this up. So yeah, just in case you're wondering, or this looks familiar. So let's get this pad right here. As you can see with this pad, there was a resonant frequency like right in the base. So I'm going to try and cut as much of the lows as possible right up to that frequency. So about 100 hertz pretty much. And not always will you get the other frequencies bleeding through. Sometimes you will, which is when you'll have to do this, but you know, just see what happens. Now the thing with this pad is it has a lot of it also has a lot of activity in the mids and the treble, but most of the resonant frequencies are in the bass. So as you can see, even when I cut just like 2000 hertz of the treble, it kind of starts to change. I'm gonna leave it at 1200 just because it doesn't really change the sound that much, just slightly. And after I boost the frequencies of the resonant frequencies, it'll be fine. So as you can see, this sound has a lot of resonant frequencies in the mids and a couple in the bass. So what you can just do is bring one band up like this and keep the bandwidth up, kind of like 24ish, which will boost all of these frequencies, which are resonant frequencies. Okay, now let's get to the third pad. kind of like with the last pack, it has a pretty high activity. Just one frequency, really high activity, like in the 150 range. So I can't really cut that. Now it'll sound like this. So that's why I stopped there. Okay. Now with the 808. Now, as you can see on this 808, there's still like a little bit of emptiness right here. So, and that's all frequencies you can cut out. So, about 25 hertz. These are just useless frequencies that you pretty much can't even hear, and that they just cloud up your mix, and you just want to cut this frequency down. And here's also another example. The 808 still has a lot of frequency and activity around the upper mids. So most people, what I see do is they'll cut to like the low mids or the mids, and it completely just changes the sound. Like here's the normal 808, then here's after cutting. So usually I end up cutting at around 5,000 hertz, around 8,000, just so it doesn't change the sound that much, and it removes the treble and those frequencies that are unneeded. Now with the 808, I'm not going to boost any frequencies, because that can distort it and just sound off. So next with the kick. Now the way I do my kicks is kind of weird. I'll try and see if, in my opinion, if the kick isn't punchy enough, I'll cut 50 hertz. That way it sounds like this. That way it hits harder. So, in my opinion, I like this kick when it sounds better. Or I like this kick better cut at 50 hertz. So that's what I'm gonna do. And once again, the kick is one of those drums that has frequencies pretty much everywhere, or a lot of activity everywhere, so you don't want to cut out a lot of the treble as well. So this kick actually is kind of unique because it doesn't have as much activity over here. But if I were to use like the popular rack kick, it has a lot of activity over here in kind of the treble area. But with this kick, it's kind of different. So I'm gonna cut about 5,000 hertz. Now with the kick, you can boost the frequencies just a little bit. So about 75 hertz. Just gonna boost this, and then turn this down to like 9. That just makes it more punchy. Next we can clap. Now, I did cut out all that bass, which kind of changed the sound, but this is all unneeded frequencies that interfere with the kick and the 808. So, and it doesn't really change the sound that much when you're playing everything together. You can't really tell the difference. So I cut that out regardless. Once again, the clap is one of those that has a lot of activity in the mids and upper mids. So just bring one band up like this and turn down to like 34 and 29, which will cover it all. The resonant frequencies. There we go. So then we got this snare. Now once again, the snare is one of those sounds that it bleeds through. So we're just gonna cut it. So we have one resonant frequency and about 500 hertz. So we're gonna bring that one up and narrow it down. And then we can just bring this one up. Then we got this snare. Now a lot of these sounds I've already worked with, like this snare and the 808 and the clap. So I'm gonna know kinda naturally just where to cut these. So just in case you see me quickly go to a specific hertz or frequency range and cut all that out, that's how I know. Now with your hi-hat, it still has a lot of activity in the mids and low mids. So it's okay to cut out all the bass. But once you get to about 10,000, 8,000 hertz, it's when you're gonna want to slowly start cutting it. See this? And even though a hi-hat has everything in the treble, we can still cut out just a slight bit. See, we can cut about 1500 or 15,000 hertz or 15 kilohertz, and it'll be fine. Now with the perks, since these don't play often, I might just use my MIDI keyboard. So 1 sec, or I'll use the normal sound here. Now this sounds weird because it has like resonant frequencies and like very specific frequencies. So it's kind of a weird sound to mix, but I've done it multiple times anyways, so should be fine. We got this Zaytoven perk right here. Now, even though it has something right here, I'm gonna cut that out anyways because it doesn't really change the sound. I'm gonna leave it there. Cut this right there. Okay. So once I'm done queuing everything, hold Control and Shift, and drag down and select everything. Turn the volumes to 0. Turn it all the way down. Then what I'll do is I'll play the beat and I'll slowly raise each one of these until I think it sounds right. So I always start with the melodic elements. So start off with this now. So about 56 should be fine. As you can see, you don't need to turn up your sounds very loud. Most of the times, they'll only go up between like 40% and 60%. So, for the 808, I like my 808s to sit at around 6 dB. So, I'll just raise that till on this meter to the left, it hits 6 dB. And when it goes over 6 dB, the line will turn yellow. So if it's at 6 dB and it's green, that's how you know it's right. So about 67 right there. Another way I like to double check is get the 30 dB meter, just to make sure it's right. And as you can see here, it's kind of bleeding through. Once again, I want my kick to be around 6 dB as well. And I'm not copying my kick. Let me do this. Also, why I like to double check, because on here it might show that it's at 6, but it might be bleeding through to about 0. So, also with the kick, I like to make it a bit more punchy by using the Fruity Soft Clipper. I might not need it for this specific kick, but I'll show you anyways. So bring your threshold down to -6 dB. And then bring your host. Which makes it more punchy, but I don't need it since the kick's already punchy enough. Okay, now with the clap. than they should be, because the hi-hats kind of set the rhythm and how the beat moves. So I like to set it a bit higher than normal, just so you can hear it clearly. Okay, so now that we got everything leveled out, something I always do with my hi-hat also is I'll add very light reverb. So get your Fruity Reverb too. Turn the size to 40. Then take the stereo separation all the way to the left, which is stereo. Take your wet knob, put it down to about 20%. Turn your decay to 1.5. Turn your bass all the way down. Leave everything normal. It sounds like this now. It's a very light effect that you can kind of barely hear, but it kind of just adds that extra ambience, and it makes it just sound better. So after I level everything out, I'll kind of double check to make sure everything's about where I want it to be. Okay, so one thing I noticed is most of the times the kick, or the 808 overpowers the kick, but in this situation it's vice versa. So I'm going to turn up the 808 so I can hear it kind of equal, or just a bit lower than the kick. Right there is 65, or -8 dB. So everything sounds good, so let's get to the master. Now, I don't know why I always do this, but whenever I'm mastering, I just rename it to master, because all of these channels are like, the text is lit up, but on here it isn't, so it makes it look like it's not active. So I just do that, just OCD. But so I've gone through a lot, like the past 3 weeks, on like mastering and how to do it. So the method I use now is I got all these isotope, ozone 5 and 7 mastering tools, or VSTs. So I'll use a maximizer, an imager, and dynamics, and occasionally an exciter. So the first thing I get is a maxima, or not an imager. Yeah, okay. A maximizer. Okay, so I got the isotope ozone 7 maximizer. You can use any any limiter for this, but I like this one because it's simple and it's really good. So I set the RC to 4. So, and then I do transient. I turn this knob up, or what's this called again? The character, to 6, to transparent, so it doesn't affect the attack and release functions. I set the ceiling down to -1 dB, because whenever you export your files to WAV or MP3, it'll normally be like 1 dB louder, so I like to set that. And what I'll do is I'll slowly drag the threshold down until this knob right here is either -6, or until I feel like the kick and the 808 are punching. Just it's more of a personal preference thing, and I can't really explain it, but I'll just show you. this was good. As you saw up top there was these like blue areas right here, like right here. That shows that first of all the kick is hitting hard and it's punching properly, and that the 808 is also not loud and it's also hitting hard and punching properly. So basically what this threshold does is it substitute it, here. Oh my god, I can't think of the words. Um it I think it lowers some of the high treble frequencies. It turns down the dB a little bit, or not the dB, but it just lowers them a little bit, and then it makes the higher frequency or the lower bass frequency stand out a bit more. So that's what you do when you pull down. So I like to find the point where the hi-hats are hitting or are loud and they're clear to hear, and when the bass is hitting good. So around 6 dB is where this will end up. So after I'm done with my maximizer, I'll get my dynamics. And this is a method I found with what's his name, DJ Cannon on YouTube, CANAN, where you solo the mid frequencies, the low mid, the mids, and you move this until the kick and the 808, because the kick is, because like the kick hits from about here to like here, but the 808 goes further than that, but it stops sooner. So you go to the point where the kick and the 808 are like, you can hear both of them clearly. So here, I'll turn this back on. So as you can tell right there, you can hear both the 808 hitting and the kick hitting loudly, or you can clearly hear it. So after I find that point, I'll unsolo it, and I'll first of all the red mark and the blue hit each other, then I'll slowly drag up until the kick and 808 are hitting properly. So right there, as you can see, you can clearly hear that kick hit, and then right after that the 808. So then with the lows, I'll just do the same thing, but with the bass. So right there at about 7-8 dB. So that's how I do my dynamics. Next thing, in between the dynamics and the maximizer, because you always want your maximizer or your limiter to be at the end, but you want your dynamics to be at the top. So I'll get the imager, and first thing I do is solo the 80 or the bass, and as you can see, it's really wide, like for a bass. So I'll turn this down until it's more of a thin line like this. But I kind of want to have some thickness, so like this. This is perfect. Then I'll do it with the mids. Now usually the mids end up really wide, basically the point of the imaging is to get it inside these two lines right here. Is to keep this inside of the two lines right here, which is perfect balance is perfect stereo balance. So, and exactly to the center is mono, and then as you keep going, as the thing gets wider, it turns into more stereo. So I like to turn this down a bit to keep it more contained around here. And it's okay if it bleeds through about right here, because for the most part it's still a really stereo. So what I'll do is I'll take it all the way down, and I'll slowly decrease it until it's wide enough. So about right there, as you can see, it barely goes through the lines, but it stays at around right here. Most of the times you won't have to do the imaging for the highs, but I like to check it anyways. As you can see, it's pretty wide still, so that doesn't have to be edited at all. I'll turn this one up just a little bit, so about right here. As you can see, for the most part, we got a pretty stereo. I'll turn this one up just a little bit because it's a stereo image, but it's also a bit too close to mono. So right there should be fine. So then I'll drag these in order. Once again, you want your limiters last, your dynamics at the top, and then your imagers and exciters in between. So with this track, I probably won't need an exciter, but I'll show you what I'll do with it anyway. So this one goes behind the imager, and the exciter does is anything above, was it 3? I think it was 3 or 5 kilohertz. It adds saturation, and then anything below, like I think it was 500, it adds distortion, like very light amounts. But most of the times I'll use it with the hi-hats if they get boring or they just don't sound good in the mix, or they just don't sound like they're hitting properly. So but in this one, the hi-hats sound cool, or they sound good, but I'll show you what it's like with what the exciter does. So as you can see, it makes it louder, and it kind of makes the hi-hat better, so it's more exciting, kind of like it's called. So I'll solo this and kind of show you what I'm talking about. So what you would normally do is just add very light amounts, anywhere between 1 and 4 should be fine. So don't really do any, so I don't, just don't overexcite it, because that could make the hi-hat sound just way overpowering. So here's all of the mastering, that should be it. Also, I'll show you what a big difference the mastering makes. So here's without mastering. As you can see, it sounds kind of dry almost, and the bass doesn't hit as hard. The hi-hats aren't very, active. They don't really get you in that mood. So, but then once you turn the mastering on, like it's supposed to be there, and it just sounds better. The hi-hats make it you want to move, do all that stuff, make you dance and all that. So that's kind of what I go for in a mix. So now the last thing we have to do is track it out. So go to pattern options, split by channel, and you're gonna put the first one, hit the plus on your numpad, and just keep going down. So then after this, you're going to select all of it and hold Control B till about 113. This is, I believe, 3 minutes and like 13 seconds, or 3 minutes and 30. But anywhere between like 105 and 141 should be good. Sometimes if you want like a 2 minute 30 tracks, you want to go to 97 or 93, but it'll be fine anyways. Next thing I do is I do put this marker all the way at the top, or all the way at the bottom, or at the beginning of the track. Hit Alt T. Oh wait, no, I pressed Alt R. Alt T. Hit and type intro. And these are just markers that tell you where the intro is, where the hook is. So the intro is normally the typical 9 bars. So then we got the hook, which will be for 2 of these, and then the verse, which will be for 3 of these. And you're just gonna mark all of these. So verse 2, and over here you could add another one and make another hook, but what I'm actually gonna do is I'm just going to cut this out and have the outro only be 2 of these, or 9 bars. So for the intro, you're gonna cut out all your drums. Sometimes you may want to leave in the 808, but most of the time you're just gonna want to have all your melodic sounds. So you might want to cut out a pad or something. So maybe like this. Something like that. So that way when the hook comes in and both of those sounds, it's like, it takes you by surprise. It's like, oh, I didn't think that would be there. So when you're tracking out everything, it's just being different. Like, try not to be too repetitive and have the same hook and the same verse repeat over and over. So what I'm actually gonna do for the hook, I'm gonna take out that sound right there and only leave it for the verse. And then on the verse, I like to take out all the perks and the snares. This is just a starting point. I may add them back in occasionally, but this is just a starting point. And then I always do the outro at the end. Okay, so with the verse, we're gonna just see how it sounds. What I'm gonna do with the verse is I'm gonna have the clap in, then add the snare, and add the clap back in. And then for this, I'm not gonna have any of those. I'm gonna have the clap, both the snares. I'm just gonna have it go into the clap. And for the hook, we're just gonna leave it the same. Then for the outro, hi-hats, the kick, the 808, and the melodic elements are gonna be the only things you might want to be playing. I'm gonna take out the kick. I'm gonna take out both of these at the end, and then I'm only gonna leave these bells. Next step, go into your mixer, right click the master knob, hit create automation clip, right click the first point, hit C to copy, go where the outro starts, right click to add a point, right click and go to paste, and then drag this all the way down, take this point tension and put it to about 8%, as you saw over here. So whenever the outro starts, it goes down in volume. So after your track's done, go to File, Export, MP3. Obviously, I'll just export it like that. You're either gonna want to export it as an MP3 or a WAV, so make sure this is at full song, leave remainder, and if you have MP3, make sure the bitrate is all the way at 320. But if your PC can't render at 320, at least try 256. But 320 is the highest possible, and it would be the best sound. For the quality, make sure the resampling is at least 128 point sync. You could try 256 or 512. Sometimes I export in 256. But I'm gonna do 128 just to keep it average, because 128 is like bottom line Spotify, SoundCloud audio quality. Trim PDC delay, HQ for all plugins, have these three. You know, just these should be default anyways. If you're doing a wave, leave those to the same. The wave depth, make sure it's 24-bit integer format or 16-bit, 16-bit. Stay away from 16-bit. That's really bad. But 24-bit is average, and then if your PC can handle it, do 32-bit. But as you can see, the disk space or not disk space, but just leave that. I'll do 32-bit just because it's better. Resampling, once again, 128 point sync, and it's pretty much the same. I export in MP3 because I don't do wave or I don't do licenses yet on my beats that give you a wave, so I just export and it'll be done rendering in like 2-3 minutes. So anyways, hope you guys enjoying. Stay tuned for next Beats studio sessions. Make sure to go follow me on Soundcloud, because I release all my beats on there. If you need some beats or you're an artist, go check out my website. Links in the description. Anyways, see ya.